So let's say I find the right angle for the bouncing ball, where I cut the scenery. And if you want to see what the camera is cropping, you can always turn resolution gate on in here. So let me close the preview window so we're not so slow. So this button up here is the blue circle with a white square around it. That's the resolution gate. It tells you first what the camera is cropping, so anything that's behind that white mask is gonna get cropped. And it also tells you on the top the resolution of your camera. So it says 1280 by 720. So anytime you're animating, you want to do this if you're ready to render your animation. So for the demo reel, for the last part of the class, you're going to make finished renders and put them all together in After Effects. So to submit the bouncing ball is fine if you just submit a Playblast. A Playblast is a low resolution version of this. So it basically just shows you what the camera is seeing right now. So when you hit play, and it shows you this, that's what you'll see on a Playblast. It's not like a render that shows you lights and shadow and all the neat rays of light and rays of shadow. It won't show you any of that. It's just what you see on your screen. So to submit the bouncing ball, it's fine to do a Playblast. How do you do the Playblast? You right click on your timeline and you'll see an option here that says Playblast. So you click on the square. This is the options for the Playblast. So here's the format. AVI is quickest, I guess. The resolution or quality is usually set to 580 or something like that. So just crank it up so it's not so pixely looking. Then on the scale, that means it's scaling the movie is usually set to 0.5. So it's making your movie half size, so it's half the size you see it in here. So just go ahead and crank it all the way up to 1, and then you turn on save to file. That will let you save the movie instead of just watching it. It'll usually, if you just click Playblast now, you'll just watch the movie and then it'll go away. It'll be one of your temporary files. So you want to check on save file, and there's Playblast. You hit it, it plays through, and then it opens and it shows you this is your movie, and it shows exactly what you see on your scene. So you can hide stuff, like you can hide these controls. I guess I could deselect the ball by clicking outside of it. Let's see, Q, like that. Then maybe delete my motion trail. Maybe select my main controller and going to display, hide. Oh, maybe it's gonna hide everything if I do that. Yeah, it's gonna hide everything. I guess I'll have to leave the controller on, or yeah, it'll turn off everything that's parented to it. So I guess you'll have to leave it on. But there's also in here where it says show, you can turn off, for example, camera names. Like, see cameras. Oh, I've left it on. Oh, that's weird. I should turn this off. But anyway, it will show you exactly what you see in here. I could turn off the grid also if it's kind of bugging me, but you'll see exactly what you see in here. There's no shadows, there's nothing fancy on it. That's what a Playblast looks like. So if you're doing animation, a lot of the times you'll do a Playblast just to render it quickly and to show it to your art director and say, does this look good? Is it moving right or not? And they'll say, no, fix this and fix that. you know, and then you'll fix it, do another Playblast, and it's really quick that way. You saw how fast the Playblast rendered, because it's literally just recording your screen. An actual render will calculate the lights and shadows, reflections, bump maps, anything else you might have on your scene that's, you know, not showing full resolution on the preview. So to do an actual render, you first have to set your render settings. So the render settings are hiding under the this gear, movie slate with a gear on it, or you can find it under Windows, rendering editors, render settings. So when you click on it, either here or on the Windows menu, this window show up, and the first thing it tells you on the Common tab, it says where is this recording to. So right now it's recording for a biped that I did for the other class, so that's not the right place I want to send my files. So if you want to change the location of it, and you know, in here it has a different location, so it's under my desktop and this class. So I'm going to change it. I don't want it to go to this other folder for Art 2630. I want it to go to this class, so I'm going to say File, Set Project, and I need to find the right class here, and I'm going to just pick this folder, and you see my path updated here to where I want it to go. And then the output is gonna do JPEGs, which is fine. It's pretty much going to do a sequence of images instead of just rendering a movie. You can render a movie, but I recommend you don't, because one, it will have the watermark from Arnold. It'll be a white watermark that says Arnold, will be all across your movie, and it doesn't look good. The other problem with rendering a movie straight out of Maya, and it is if it crashes midway through rendering, the whole movie will be ruined. It won't work. Instead, if you render an image sequence, if let's say you're rendering and you're an image 20 and Maya crashes, you can restart the rendering and start from image frame number 21. So your last render left on frame 20, you just start from frame 21 and you can keep going. And that's how it's done in production, so you don't wait a whole bunch of time, and then your movie gets ruined at the last frame and you have to start over. So to render an image sequence, this will be by default set to single image. So you want to switch this to the name of the image, the image number, and the extension. The extension being either JPEG or Targa or PNG or whatever format you're rendering out to. So I'm going to change it, and I'm going to say name, number, and extension. And that one has dots in between. I don't really care. I think this one's fine. Name, number, and dot and extension, which is JPEG. So it's showing me an example here. How it's gonna name it? It's gonna name it bol 1001.jpg, and that's what I want. You don't want the extension first, like JPEG bol 10,029, because no software can open the extension in between, you know, with the extension in the front or in another place. So yeah, name, number, and extension is fine. Here you tell it how many frames you want to render. So this animation is 29 frames. Let's see, how many frames is it? 29, yeah. So you can say 1 to 29. As by default 1 to 10. So you want to change this usually. And then what camera you want to render. If you have more than one camera, you just pick it from the list here. In this case, mine is the perspective. If you go a little bit lower, it will say what size the movie is. So right here is telling you how big the movie is. So when I turn this on, it shows me the size of the movie. and you can change that size over here. So we've been working on 1920 by 1080 usually until now, but this will depend on your computer a lot. So if your computer has a hard time rendering an image, or it takes a long time, and your image is 100 frames, you don't want to sit there and wait for days, you know. What I would do is I would set this back to a single image. Let's say and we can try and see how long it takes. So if you do a regular render with just this blank movie slate, you just click on it, it will render one frame at this size. So right now the size is 1920 by 1080, and it will start rendering one frame. Let's give it a minute so it finishes. Okay, so it's done, looks like it. Let me just make the window smaller, and it should tell you on the bottom of the frame how long it took to render. So it says at frame 1920 by 1080, render time 16 seconds. So 16 seconds, and I have 29 frames. So I would bring my calculator. Let me open it here. Where's my calculator? Here it is. Come on, it doesn't want to come to this other window for some reason. There we go. Okay. So I have 16 seconds for 20 and my animation lasts 29 frames. So every one of these frames will take 16 seconds to render. So 29 frames is 464 seconds. That divided by 60 so about 7 minutes, almost 8 minutes, I guess it will take to render. So if you look at that and you're rendering here one frame, it says like 5 minutes or 30 minutes for one frame. That's taking too long, right? You don't want to wait that long, because if you have, let's say, 100 frames and each frame is taking half an hour, you know, you will not be able to finish. Your computer will be rendering forever. So what you would do if that happens to you, if your computer is not fast enough to render this much, you can half the movie. So you go back to your render settings and you say, instead of rendering at 1920 by 1080, I'm going to do 720p, which is the smaller size, 1280 by 720. So it's like the first high definition TVs were this size, and we'll see how long this render takes. So hopefully it's half the time than the other one. It might be even faster than that. So it took 7 seconds. So if this size is even too slow for your computer, you know, the next size is the default size, which is I think it's 960. Yeah, I think it's 960. So let me go back to rendering settings. Yeah, it's 960 by 540. So that way you can, okay, it's rendering too slow, I need to go smaller. So this only took 4 seconds. So this, you know, this size is almost the same than doing a Playblast. It's almost not worth to do the render. Well, still it'll have the shadows and the light reflecting and all that, you know, the nice shadows. So any smaller than that, I would say just do the Playblast. So now that you have the size and you know it can render it, we'll go back to the render settings. It will tell it to render the whole animation. So again, by default, it's set to render a single frame. So we're going to click in here and say name, number, and extension. And remember, this menu is under render settings, which is the movie slate with the gear on it. Tell it what frames we want to render, so 1 through 29, and then close. And then we're going to go to our render settings. So our render settings are hiding in here. I'm sorry, our render menu. So right now on the top left, you see we have the modeling menu on. If you open in here and say rendering, it will show our rendering menus. So there's options for lighting, texturing, and here's rendering. So if you open rendering, oops, and if you wanted to render a movie, you'd say batch render. But like I mentioned, because we're using the student version of Maya, it'll have a big watermark on it, and it will not look good. So we want to do the render sequence. So render sequence will render those images how we told it to when we were on render settings. We told it to render JPEGs and render from frame 1 to frame 29. So we're going to click render sequence. You'll see your computer starting to go through each frame. So it takes 4 seconds per frame. So sometimes my mic goes out when I'm rendering. Can you guys hear me still? I hope you guys can hear. Okay, Clayton say yes. Okay, so okay, great. So while it's rendering, you know, what you will do is you'll bring this image sequence that Maya spits out and put it on After Effects or Premiere. I will show you how to do it in After Effects because that's what we used at the beginning of the semester. So you guys should be a little more familiar with it than Premiere. Unless you're taking Premiere in another class or you've used it before. But basically what we're going to do is just grab all these images, put them together in After Effects, and then create the movie. So it's telling me here, I think it's on frame 16. I'm not gonna make you wait till the end of it, so I'm just going to hit escape on my keyboard, and that's gonna quit the keyboard. I mean not the keyboard, quit the rendering. So I just hit escape and stop rendering. So I have from image 1 to image 19. So this is exactly what would happen if you're in a production. I work in a place that they have a render farm. You know, and the files were huge when we were rendering. So you would send your movie from Maya to this render farm. What happens on a render farm? They have a bunch of CPUs or a bunch of computers, I guess, if you want to call it that. Each computer or CPU renders 1 frame of your movie. So if 1 frame takes an hour, you know, you have 30 computers rendering a different frame of your movie. So in an hour, instead of just having 1 frame, you have 30 frames instead. And you know, if it would crash, like let's say this is your rendering crash at frame 19, you know, you can start from frame 19 again and go render the last 10 frames you have instead of having to start from 0 compared to us rendering a movie out of Maya. So I'm going to open After Effects and show you how to bring these images in. And then after this, I'm going to show you how to. I'm going to answer questions about your animation if you have any. Okay, so here I'm in After Effects. stops opening here. So on the project window, let me close this. On the project window, I'm going to right click in here and say import file, and wait for it to do its thing. Okay, so this one was on desktop, 1630 images. Okay, so here are all the images that I rendered. So if I do this, if I drag over them and bring them all over, you will have all the images here, and you'll have to put them in here and sequence them by hand. So I don't recommend doing that. Instead, just select the very first scene, the very first render. So ball 1, 1001. And by default, when you import something to Maya, it should say import JPEG sequence or Targa sequence or PNG, whatever format your files are. So if this is checked on, Maya knows you want to bring all the sequence at once and put it on a sequential order. I'm sorry, After Effects, not Maya. So After Effects will know because you click the first one and say import the sequence. It will know to put it in sequence, and it'll bring just one file instead of all of them separate. So I'm going to say import, and now there's one file in here, and it has my sequence on it. I don't have to sequence it by hand, a bunch of pictures. So with this on, you have to pay attention to a couple things here. So the first one is, it says the frame rate is 30 frames per second, which I know is not right, because in Maya I'm working at, I guess I'm working at 15 frames per second. So I need to change that in After Effects. So I'm going to go back to After Effects and tell it this is not 30 frames per second, it's 15, which should be 24. I don't know what I was doing or what I was talking about when I changed it to 15, but I'm just gonna keep the same frame rate. So I'm going to say, right click on my file here, my image sequence, and say interpret footage. This will open, and right here is the frame rate. So it's saying do 15 frames per second instead of 30, so I'm gonna type it in here and then say OK. So now it will play the same at the same rate than Maya, and you'll see the movie should last the same amount of time than in Maya. So with this done, I can either grab my file and put it on new composition or on the timeline. With both, it will do the same. It will create a movie the same size than my images and the same duration in time than my images. So if I play it, it has all my frames. Oh, and there's a mistake there. That's weird. I guess I had another render with the same name before. But this is the first render, ends right there. So I guess I had rendered it before. So I'm going to cut my movie to that frame. Let's see. Yeah, that's my last frame. Okay, so now my movie's done here. I can start rendering. I'm sorry, I can export the movie. So I'm going to say File, Export, add to Adobe Media Encoder. And I know you don't want to use another program, but Adobe wants us to use another program, so we'll have to, I guess. So once Adobe Media Encoder, you'll probably remember this vaguely from when you first started the class. You'll see your composition show up in here. There it is. It might take a minute, so be patient. And the format you want is H264. By default, it should be set to that. The only thing you want to change is where is the movie being saved to. So right now it's saying save to a local file, local temp file. I don't want it there. I want it on my desktop. So that's the only thing you have to change. Unless you have this set to a different format, but by default it should be H264. The only thing you have to change is where is the file being saved to. Once you have that set, you hit play and your movie will be done. So you'll see the progress bar going down here on the bottom, and you should see a preview of the movie playing. Mine is so short that it just didn't show up at all. So if I go to the desktop now, you'll see the movie in there. Point. Okay. So that's how you render your movie. If you wanted to, let's see. If you wanted to render an image sequence of your Lego scene, you could do that. You know, it'll make your image a little more interesting to look at. But that's rendering on a broad stroke, you know, how you render a movie out of Maya. Again, the steps now to summarize are: you set your render settings. Where's the file saving to? If it's saving to the wrong place, you change it by going to File, Set Project. That will let you pick the right folder. You change single frame in here and file output to name, number, and extension. That will ungrade this section here. It says frame range, and you can tell it what frames to render. The size of your render. And remember, if you do a single frame render, so if you go back here, a single frame render, it will tell you on the bottom how long each frame will take, so you can plan ahead for if you need to make your size smaller or keep it the same. Then after you have your render settings, you change your menu to rendering up here. You say render and render sequence, and that's all there is to rendering. I mean, actually, yeah, you need to bring it into After Effects. When you import it, you say import sequence instead of just multiple images. That's when you have a bunch of images here and you have to time them by hand. You don't want to do that. You want to bring the sequence. So you select the first image on your sequence, make sure this is selected, import sequence. Then make sure the timing, the frame rate is right. Bring it over to the composition or to the timeline, and we'll do the same. And file export to Adobe Media Encoder. Where is it? File export, there it is. To Adobe Media Encoder. So that's all you have to do to render. There's a few steps to it, but yeah, you have them now. I'm going to upload this movie after the class is done. So now I would like to know if anybody's having problems with their animation, with their bouncing ball, or if you guys have questions, or if you want to show me your animation so I can see how it looks, if it looks good. So let me stop the screen sharing here so I can look at the chat. Okay, so Clarissa is having problems with the animation. Go ahead, Clarissa. I hope it's the animation. You just said I'm having problems. I don't know.
Sorry. My dogs got into a little bit of a fight and I had to go separate them. Were you talking to me?
Oh no, you're good. I was wondering. So you're having problems with your kids now with the animation?
Technically, yes. Now I'm having problems with both, but I did have questions about my animation.
Okay. Okay.
Is there a way? I'm just going to share my screen to show what I'm talking about. Usually when I'm setting up an animation, I don't really worry about the spacing between the frames. I just put keyframes in order, and I'll fix it later.
Okay.
But I can't figure out a really good way to take this frame and move it without also moving it up and down. And I was wondering if there's a way to just like say, hey, you're on frame 20, but I want you to be on frame 22. Is there a place that I can like
Yes.
type that?
Yes. So you have the keyframe selected, right?
Yeah.
On the top left of that same window, see that?
It's right here, isn't it?
Yeah, that's where the frame is. So you can type a different number and it'll move it. So
I've been missing that all weekend.
sorry.
Pretty annoyed that I didn't see something obvious. I'm really glad you pointed it out so fast. Thank you.
No, and that is the easy way. I think if you hold Control and Shift, it should move in just one direction, but sometimes it doesn't. It doesn't capture that, and it moves on all directions anyway. Anybody else having problems with their animation? Now, there is one more thing I want to talk to you guys about. The animation is due on the 30th, which is really not enough time to work on your demo. So, let's see. So the 30th is next week on Friday. And I think most people should be pretty much done by then. I see a lot of people that are almost done right now. So I think the animation should be done this Friday instead, the 24th. So you guys have time to put your Lego renders and your bouncing ball animation on a demo with your, you'll put what you did on the first part of the semester, which was your intro card, then your Lego render, and then your bouncing ball render, not a Playblast, but an actual render. So I want you guys to have next week to do that. So you can be done on the week of finals, so you can, just put all your attention on your other classes that are not, when you have an animation done or an piece of art done, it's done. You don't need to think about it. But if you're taking math or English, you have to think and memorize and do all those things. So I was thinking of changing the due date for the bouncing ball to this Friday. Anybody has any opposition to that or complaints? Speak now or forever hold your peace, I guess. So let me look at the chat here. No objections, that's fine. I'm fine with that. Okay, and I don't know what the other students and that are not here right now, that might be watching the class later, are thinking. But we're going to say that the bouncing ball will be due this Friday. So the next 2 days I'll be just showing up to help you with the animation. Like tomorrow I'll help you with your animation if you have questions. If you want to show it to me and see what I think about it. And same on Wednesday. Then on next week I'll show you how to put your demo reel together. And we'll get it done, and the week after that we just show it to everybody shows their demo and we're done. And that's the whole semester there. Clarissa, you had another animation question? Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I wasn't muted that whole time. Sorry everyone who could hear me typing.
No, that's fine.
When I tried to do the squash and stretch against the wall, something really glitchy happened, and I'm sure I just did something wrong, and I was wondering if you could take a look.
Yeah, go ahead. Share your screen and we'll take a look.
I was also wondering, I'm going to ask this one first. For the demo reel, I wanted to do like a 3D spin of a scene that I had set up.
Uh-huh.
Is there a quick camera in Maya that's just do a 360 spin of this object?
Yes. Yeah, I'll show you how to do that. What do you want me to show you first?
I don't know. Does anyone in the class care about one of those?
Well, let's do the bouncing ball since we'll talk about. Yeah, because we'll talk about the demo later. So okay, so the balls.
Ignore how messed up this is because of the problem I was having, but with the squash and stretch, so normally the squash is out here at the bottom. But then I tried to move it over to the side,
Mm-hmm.
and then I did the squish and then the return back to normal.
Okay.
The end result is this weird. I just don't know what I did wrong.
I think it's because there's 2 frames in between. So grab. Let's see. Where's the squash? Show me the squash there. So that's the squash, and then what's frame 41? Yeah, so that's interpolating there. So
Should I just move this up to 41 and this?
yeah, so move the frame back to 41. That keyframe to 41, and then yeah, that's the squash rotating. You can move that one to 43. I hit and oh, did it move?
Oh, I guess this also needs to. No, stop. I hate this game. Please grab the keyframe.
There you go.
No, it's like minus. Hey, it stopped doing the weird thing.
Yeah, it's just interpolating, you know, the in between.
Okay.
So now you have to pay attention because we moved the. There's no in between there. The it might not be hitting the wall in there on that frame.
It's not. There's a lot that needs fixing. I'm losing mass here, and I'm not sure. I'll fiddle with it some more.
Yeah.
I'm probably gonna have a lot more questions tomorrow.
That's okay. So the demo reel. You know, any other questions about animation? Anybody has been having problems with their animation? Clayton is saying, I need a reminder on how to change the keyframe. So hopefully you can see my screen now. Let me go back to Maya. So if you need to delete or change a keyframe, so let me select this animation. So this is all the animation for this bouncing ball. If you need to delete a keyframe, you just highlight it on the graph editor, and you can hit delete on the keyboard. Oops. Or you can go to the channel. Let's say, let me select the main controller here. You can do it on the channel box too. You can also go to the channel box. No, it's fine. There's so many things to remember on this that it doesn't surprise me that you forget something like that. So there's so many steps to everything in 3D, you know. So don't feel bad. You can also delete them in here. You can highlight them. Let's see, is there a delete selected? No, that deletes everything. No, so you have to do it on the graph editor, because that deletes everything. You can, yeah, the graph editor is the only way, because this is also all the keyframes on the timeline. So you just have to grab it here. Also, you can grab it and move it. Let's say this is the top of the ball, and I don't want it to be in at right now it's saying it's at 3.41 units up on the y-axis. So this one, you can just change it and rekey it. That will modify the frame. So now is that, let's say I want it to be 5 units up, so I move it up on I have to be on that keyframe obviously, and then rekey it. I can say key selected. now is 5 units up instead of 4. You can also change it in here, like you have it selected here, and you can't change how many units it goes up in here. So I just want it to be even, an even number, so 5 going up. And instead of frame 15, let's say I want it to be in frame 14, I can change it there, or I can do it by hand, grabbing it and moving it up. So that would be value, positive or negative, and then time would be left to right. And I think if you hit Control Shift, it should, no, let's say Control, nope, this is Shift. Yeah, so if you hold Shift, so let's select the keyframe. If you hold Shift and click on the keyframe, you'll see a question mark. That's asking you want to move up or side to side. So if you start moving in one direction, it will know which direction you want to go. So it's holding Shift, and then now it will only move side to side. Well, if I hold Shift and I click and hold, it will show me the question mark. Let's say I just want to change the value, so I move up a little bit on the mouse, and it will know to only move it up and down and not side to side. So it is Shift, the shortcut to do that. Yeah. Anything else? Anything else about animation? Oh, I can open the chat window now. That's great. All right, if you guys don't have anything, anything else? Wait, do I hear some?
Josh is doing the weird morphing thing again, even though they're only 1 frame apart.
Oh, okay.
Sorry, I'll stop.
No, you're good. So, if you don't have any questions, you're free to go. Please come ready to show your animation tomorrow. Clarissa, stick around. I'll help you with that squash and stretch, and we'll see what the deal is. Okay. So, if you want to leave, I'll see you tomorrow. Bye for now, and if you have questions, stick around. Okay, Clarissa, go ahead and share your window.
So I had it here, squish, here. That was weird, so I deleted this one since it seemed to be pointless. Grabbed this one, moved it over to 41. So it should be flipping on 40 and then 41, but like, doing that?
I think it's put it on that frame. Let me see. Let me see again. Yeah, grab it and put it. It's the, you know what it is? It's the shoot. Open the controller here on the left side. Controller, yeah, open it and then open this squash. Why is it not showing on your channel box? Go down on your channel box. We want to see. Yeah, keep going a little more down. There, squash 1. Open that. It is the, what's it called? The start and the end of the squash. So the high bound and the low bound. So on the no, wait a second, that should not matter. Because how long are you?
I think I see what happened.
Yeah, I think it's because the low bound, you know, I see how it's only part of the wall being affected, but I think the ball is staying at the wall too long.
I think what I did is I deleted it wrong.
Uh-huh.
I should make future edits within the Squisher. Rather than changing the frames out there, I should have changed the frames in here to adjust.
Oh. You can't have it. You can select the 2 keyframes and have it hold one position to the next with the you know, where you break your handles for the Bezier curves. There's one that's step curve. So if you hold the I keep going left. That one. So that one will hold one position, like not squashed. And then when it hits the next keyframe, we'll change for just that one frame to squashed. Instead of, you know, to that, yeah, instead of, what's it called? Interpolating between the two.
Okay, how do I just pick this one and, like, step it up?
Yep. Yeah, hit step. Yeah, see, there's, oh, and then after that, I guess you should do the same.
And then I can delete this one, maybe? And then it'll just blink.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
So it'll be like an instant change.
And I set this to 41, it's not going to break anything?
I think it's after, when it's going back to normal, is also having interpolation. Squash.
Cool, bro.
So did you scale the squash? Oh, I guess.
I remember 'cause I did it a couple days ago.
It looks like it's
I did to set the squash, I thought, was change the factor.
okay. Yeah, and you can, you know, the squash can be rotated and scale and all that. It looks like besides rotating it, you put a keyframe on the scale of the squash, which I don't know if you want there or not, but that's why you're seeing that green line in there, because the squash should be just the white line.
I think I'm going to do something radical and delete the squash, get the timing all set up properly, and then put in the squashes.
But wait, before you do that, on the right there, see how the scale is keyed frame? If you go in there and say break connections, oh no, it crashed. I'm sorry. But yeah, if you take off the scale keyframes, it will get rid of that green line in there. So you only see the white line, just the white line for the squash, instead of, you know, having all the keyframes there that you don't really need, unless you wanted to scale the squash and stretch. I don't.
I didn't do it intentionally. Are you talking about the green line in the graph editor?
Yeah. So that's the scale for the squash and stretch, as far as I can tell. So you don't really need it there, unless you want to scale the squash and stretch.
Alright. Working in 3D just takes a brain adjustment, I guess.
It is pretty strange. It's not like animating by drawing. It's completely different. Which I remember at first it completely turned me off from it.
Is there no way for me to just say, hey, I want you to play this back in real time? I know you talked about it earlier, but...
Yes.
Well, I'm trying to figure out...
Is right here, so let's see. So right now it's playing 24 frames per second. I would have to change this to...
Are you not...
Oh, not sharing. Yeah, I'm not sharing screen. Okay, sorry. So... okay, so... I'm at 15 frames per second. I've had to change it to 24 or something that's video, you know, friendly. 24 frames or 23.97 or 30 frames per second. So I'm gonna change it to 24. If I play it, it might play really fast. So on the bottom right corner, there's a little guy running, meaning animation with a gear. If you click on it, the playback settings show up. So you can say playback, play every frame, and then maximum playback speed is 24 frames per second, which is real time.
What are the times 1, times 0.5, times 2? What does that mean?
Sorry?
Under the max playback speed, there were 3 options.
Maximum playback speed. So it will play. It'll play half a frame in 1 second. So instead of this is technically making 1 frame last half twice as long.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I can work with this.
Twice as long, and then this is making each frame last. What's it called? This would be like 24 frames per 2 seconds. I think that's the same on this, isn't it? Oh, let me see. Let me see what it does. Rewind. Yeah, that slows it down. Usually you just want it at real time, you know, 24 frames per second. By default, for some reason it's set to free, which plays it as fast as it can. Which is if you had a lot of animation, you know, and a lot of things moving, the computer would be going super slow. So free would play as fast as it can with all the animation that's going on. But we don't have that much stuff, so we just set it to real time. So play 24 frames per second, and say save, and it should play at the right speed.
Perfect. Okay, this is much more.
Work.
I don't know if I'm just doing everything wrong, but like my usual workflow is put the keyframes roughly where you think they'll be, play it through, watch it, tweak it, finish.
Yeah.
Much less math that way.
Yeah. Yep. Well, and reference will help you with that, you know, a lot.
Perfect. Okay. Thank you. I'll have an animation to show tomorrow.
Great.